Thunder! Thunder! Thunder!
What are you looking at, nerd? Huh?
Nerds! 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 Get those nerds!
Welcome, I'm Frederick Weiss, and thank you for consuming the Thunder Nerds, a conversation with the people behind the technology that love what they do and do tech good. And our sponsor, Auth0, is helping us do that all year long. Auth0 makes it easy for developers to build a custom, secure, and standard-based unified login by providing authentication and authorization as a service. Try them out now by going to auth0.com. Also, check them out at youtube.com/auth0, twitch.tv/auth0, and avocadolabs.dev for their online meetup events. Thanks again, Auth0. That's auth0.com. Thanks so much, Auth0. Really appreciate it. And let's go ahead and welcome our guest. And, you know, speaking of a guest, we actually have a co-host on the show today, which I'm so grateful to have. Before we get to Swyx, we have Arit Amana. Arit, thank you so much for guest hosting with us today.
You are welcome. Thanks for having me. It's great to be back.
Yeah, absolutely appreciate it. And with that being said, and no adieus being further, let's get to our guest for today. Learning in public evangelist, speaker, author, teacher, writer, programmer, podcaster, Swyx himself. Welcome to the show.
Woo! Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really. Oh, thanks. Really appreciate it. It's I feel really lucky to have both of you on the show today. So thanks both of you. I guess at the start for sharing your time. I know it's always a little challenging on a Saturday. So, you know, thanks again.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah. Hey, you know, I know you were having some issues, Swyx, with traveling. Do you mind talking a little bit about that? I think you got caught up in that Trump travel ban, and now you're back in Washington. Am I
Yes.
correct there?
Yes, sir, Seattle. Yeah, I went to Croatia for a conference, the Shift conference, which was amazing. It was my first in-person conference in a long, long time. And it's always amazing to have like an all expenses paid conference travel trip. And so I went with it with all my friends who were also speakers and had a really good time there and gave a talk and met a lot of interesting people. Came back to the immigration gates and got turned around by the Customs and Border Patrol because they said that I came from a restricted country. So it turns out that I mean, I knew in concept about the Trump travel ban, but like that was imposed like early in the pandemic, and I had the vaccine and I had a negative COVID test. I just assumed that I'd be fine because like it's like I have American vaccine in me.
Yeah.
But no, just as a rule of law by executive proclamation, I am a higher COVID risk because I have the wrong piece of paper. So I had to go quarantine in Mexico for 14 days. Don't really speak the language. Didn't have a place to stay. Didn't have any cash on me, and just had to figure it out.
Wow. So what did you not have your COVID registration card, or did that just not count?
Didn't matter. Yeah, it didn't matter.
Didn't matter. That is so crazy. Well, you know, speaking of your travels, then I know you said you got caught up in Mexico, but you know, within these travels, how was everything? Did you feel safe with the vid going around? Like, was everybody masking up? Is it a little bit better than here?
Everyone's fairly, actually, I think, yeah, I'll say that Europe is actually more uptight or strict about having your mask on properly and at all times. So yeah, that's even the ironically surprising bit that the US is enforcing Europe travel ban when quite honestly, like Europe is doing a better job of keeping their masks on.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's interesting how that that all works, and hopefully within I don't know, maybe I'm being optimistic. In 6 months, we'll get to a place that's a little bit better. It seems that Delta variant is kind of slowing down in certain locations in the United States, and the same thing with, what is it, the MU? I don't know how you
Lambda.
pronounce it.
And the
Lambda, is that
Lambda
another one?
variant. Yeah,
There's a
that's
new
another
one.
one.
I
Yeah,
didn't even know
Lambda.
that there's a new
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, Lambda is picking up. Hmm.
Oh, is that the
Yeah.
one that's supposed to be like resistant to the vaccine or
I
something
think
such as
so.
that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get back to feeling safe again, at, going to conferences and seeing people and all that. But yeah,
I hope
again,
so.
yeah, I think we have to. There's too many smart people out there to not get us through the situation.
Hmm.
So, Swyx, tell me a little bit about yourself in your own words. I know Swyx is from your name, Sean, and it's the initials within Chinese of your English and American name. Do you mind just giving our audience a brief context about yourself?
Yeah, born and raised in Singapore and came to the States for college. And I spent my first career in finance, where I did investment banking and hedge funds. Mostly learned to code on the job, but I never had the title software engineer. So I made my own tools, but I didn't do any software engineering best practices, no testing, haha, no version control, haha. It was great. It was fantastic. I came out of investment banking with a 4,000 line VBA script that I copied and emailed to myself every single time I came out with a new version. So that was my version control.
That was your
email.
version. Oh, that is hilarious. That is amazing.
Yeah, it's on the GitHub gist actually, because I lost it for a while and then I was like, wait, hang on, like that was the most significant program I ever made in my early years. I better figure it out. So if you search my Twitter and look for VBA, you'll see it. And yeah, eventually I burned out of the finance bit. It was very stressful, and I think it's not very good for just like fundamentally, it's a very closed ecosystem, very zero sum, like I win, you lose. And I realized that it wasn't actually compounding. That was the main thing. I was okay with zero sum actually, because like some things have to be, but it wasn't compounding. So whatever trade I made, whether or not it made money, the next trade would have to top it. And if I lost money, I would have to make up what I lost. And it was just like a black hole of ideas and energy. And after 2 years of day-to-day stress, some days just sleeping under the table because I was just too tired to go home, I had enough. I just burned out. And it wasn't like, I think it was like a 50-50 like me and them thing. Like I think that there are some people who are just really insanely talented at it, but I put in my all for 2 years, and there's like a company-wide ranking of like analysts, and I came in the middle, and I looked at the people who are at the top, and I was like, I'm not them. So but there was one thing I was good at, which is coding, which was like making my own tools. And I realized that I was doing a lot of number crunching. So I did Python and Haskell number crunching for my derivatives trades and for my portfolio risk management. And I was often the script monkey whenever people wanted to make any changes to calculations, or like, hey, like, can you rerun the analysis like in this different way? I would have to go back and punch those numbers in and get the numbers out and then like send it back to them. If I could remove myself from that equation, then people would get a lot of use out of my work without me there. And that's what led me to front-end development and JavaScript. I think actually front-end developers don't appreciate sometimes the power that they have in creating applications that stand alone without them and that can scale basically infinitely without any resources whatsoever apart from the browser. That's just an amazing tool. So yeah, even despite all the language that I learned, JavaScript was the hardest. So I tried 6 months of self-learning with Free Code Camp, and I didn't feel it was enough. So I enrolled in a boot camp, and that got me my first job. So I did. So just to wrap up, I did a year in 2 Sigma, and then joined Netlify. That's kind of my claim to fame, where I joined like fairly early on, and then grew with them, and then joined AWS to do more like basically Netlify plus, because like it was a Netlify competitor plus storage plus AWS auth and stuff like that. And then early this year, I joined Temporal as head of developer experience. Yeah, that's it.
Let me ask you this question. I want to jump back to what you're doing now, but there's a lot of us that we start off in these careers that we believe are the best path for us, or I went to school for this, or my family told me to do this, or I feel like I'll be able to make the most money in this. What exactly got you into finance, and yeah, I mean, you went into the turning point, but what was there an actual love or a passion for finance, and then you kind of discovered your actual passion?
I think there was a passion. Otherwise, I wouldn't have stuck with it for so long. What got me into it was honestly the 1997 and 2001 financial crisis. So 1997 is not such a big deal for Americans, but in Asia it was a big deal. There was a Asian financial crisis, currency crises, entire governments collapsed because of mismanagement of their economy. So and also hedge funds. But but I realized that basically every other job, every other industry is inherently tied to the economy, except if you deal in finance and if you can short the market when everything is going to hell. And I kind of saw that again during college, because I already decided on a career in finance. But during college, I went through the great financial crisis of 2007, 2008. And again, like everyone, out of a job or like overextended in their loans or whatever. But if you're a hedge fund, you managed to be able to short the market. So it seemed like the only career where if you could call bullshit on, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know if I can swear. If you can call BS on, you can call BS on sometimes central bankers who are quite frankly, they're confidence men and confidence women. Like they say things that may not actually be true, and if you cash them out doing it, you can actually make a lot of money. But at the bare minimum, you can at least look after yourself. If everything is going to hell in a handbasket, like you can actually move yourself to cash, or like you are just in the center of like the financial transformation of assets. And I think that's a very powerful position to be in. And I thought if I could understand that and get good at it, then it would be a really great position to be in. I think I got there in understanding, but I wasn't good at it. That's kind of the summary of it. I also didn't like the people, I would say. Like, yeah, there were a lot of I think money is an interesting thing, and when you deal with other people's money and you deal in very large sums of it, like we're a 3-person team running $1 billion in gross notional value.
Wow.
Why I say notional, it's not actually, we didn't have $1 billion sitting around. That was including the shorts that we had. So we were a market neutral long short fund. So we had to buy $500 million worth of shares, but then also shorts 500 million of other shares which will hopefully go down and make profit on the difference. And yeah, I mean, I thought that was my ideal position. I spent 10 years getting there, and I got there and I realized I didn't like it. So was the second part of the question?
Well, I think that
oh, go ahead.
Please. No, please.
Yeah, no, that's an incredible story, Swyx, I have to say. And I guess a follow-up question, I know we need to get to the rest of our talking points, but I'm curious to hear you speak about how because it takes a lot of courage, I feel. Like you can know that something isn't working for you, and you can know that I'm not happy here and I'm not as fulfilled as I thought that I was going to be, but I still think it takes a certain level of courage to walk away from the familiar. So can you talk about like how you more so the mental and the emotional side? I mean, we know you transitioned out of that job, but if you could speak to maybe any challenges you faced, either mentally or emotionally, or in terms of, right?
I speak to a lot of finance refugees who are like me. They heard my story and then they want to do it, but then they're kind of like, but I have a really comfortable life. I get paid well in finance. Like, you want me to walk away from this? And yeah, and changing careers, like, I unfortunately I don't have like kids or anything, so it was a little bit easier for me. But changing careers at the age of 30 is still something that's intimidating, I think, because like you feel like you should be hitting your stride. You should be well known in your industry by now, and to say like screw it, I'm going to start over, you have to be in a certain point of like understanding that there's a lot of life left, and it's life is too short to spend doing something that you don't enjoy or are not good at.
It reminds me of a tweet you just put out the other day where, and I'm going to read this verbatim so I get it right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of quote unquote, quit your job, indie hack your way to freedom on social media. I want to articulate a middle path, work at a company on interesting problems, but also maintain side projects, reputation as backup, and long-term game, AKA have a job while not being your job. Does that kind of go with that? Is that fair?
That's a slightly tangential thing, but I was
Sure.
definitely my job during finance. Like there was nothing else
Yeah.
about me apart from my job, and I think, but it also applies to a lot of devs who are their job, and that's their whole identity, and they're kind of banking on their job treating them well to take care of them long term. I don't think it serves them very well sometimes, because I find that basically, jobs don't have your long-term best interest at heart. They want to slot you in to somewhere within the hierarchy for you to perform according to the ladders and career metrics that they've defined. But sometimes they don't know what your interests are, and if your interests diverge at all from the company, then you're kind of screwed if you don't have a network outside of your job. And to build a network, you probably should do something interesting to others that are interesting to them beyond the company that you work at. So this tweet is a more recent realization, nothing to do with the finance bit, but I guess it's related.
Yeah, I was just thinking it as a way of more of like advice for people that you don't if you're looking to do something, you don't have to jump off a bridge to get to a ship.
Oh yeah.
You can work at where you're at and kind of build up and then find that, or sometimes it makes sense to just drop what you're doing and go forward.
For anyone who's considering a career change, or anyone who knows a friend who's considering a career change, this is exactly what I did. I took a year to do it. I left my hedge fund. I joined a startup that was serving my hedge fund. So I went from customer to employee. And so I was tech adjacent, right? I was tech adjacent and still using my finance knowledge, but trying out a startup role. I was a non-technical product manager. And while I was there, I learned to code on the side using Free Code Camp. I'm a massive supporter of them. I've donated to them every year since I graduated, and they're really helpful in trying this on and seeing if you can hack it as a developer.
Yeah,
So,
Arit, you have a similar story too, right?
I do.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I do,
What's your
and I
story?
love Free Code Camp as well. You're so right. This is just a really robust platform, and I feel anyone who's heard my story and reaches out to me asking that they want to do the same thing, I always point them to Free Code Camp. I'm like, if you can gain all those certificates and have fun doing Free Code Camp, then you could probably make it as a developer and enjoy it, which is also important.
Yeah. How long did you take to go through the whole thing?
My journey was 11 months. 11 months from my first line of code to my first job was 11 months. Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. So, yeah, but I had a lot of privilege working for me. So I don't want to make it sound like it was, I had a lot of perks. Like I didn't have to work. And so that was a huge, burden not to have, is, not worry about bringing in a paycheck. Yeah, I would say that was the biggest part of my privilege, was not having to work. But it wasn't easy. I had an infant daughter and a son, so it wasn't easy by any means.
Yeah.
I would like to segue, if it's okay with you, Swyx, into your current work as a developer experience. I feel like there should be a third word I should be saying, right?
The title is Head of Developer Experience. It's kind of
okay. Head of Developer
title.
Experience.
Yeah.
Thank you. At Temporo.io. Talk to us about what developer experience is, and what your day-to-day is like in that role.
Sure. I've been asked various versions of this quite recently. There's a lot of interest around this. I don't really know why. So I segment developer experience into kind of two large sections, and then I'll focus on the section that I focus on. So internal developer experience is often formed by companies and teams that have a lot of developers internally, and they want to improve their productivity. So you see developer experience teams at like Spotify or Slack or Netflix. Their customers are not developers, but internally they have a lot of developers, and if you can improve the productivity of 1% of them, then you just gained, the equivalent of like 100 developers for free, right? So for those people, the way that I split it up is kind of there are the three main buckets, and I think the Netflix model is really interesting. If you listen to their podcast, they talk a little bit about it, which is essentially getting people started really quickly. So the bootstrap phase, that's the first bit. The second bit is getting from code to deploy really, really quickly. So that's kind of deployment, I guess, or CI/CD. And then the last bit is getting from production back to deployment. So getting data, logs, errors, all that, feeding that into the dev environment so that they can respond to incidents or outages or errors very quickly. So that's kind of like the full software development lifecycle that I really like in internal developer experience. And I think when developer tools companies like the one I work at or Netlify or AWS, we try to market to developers, then that becomes external developer experience. So what we are trying to do is we're trying to serve these internal developer experience teams or the VP of Eng or whoever is trying to make their own life more productive, because obviously software development, as cool as it is still very unproductive in some elements, and we could do better with better tooling. So external developer experience is kind of mostly right now developer relations, which is, hey, we have an awesome product, let me tell you about it, right? But that's a lot of content marketing. So you see people writing blog posts, giving talks, and doing workshops and stuff like that. But also, I think it's starting to evolve a little bit more into community management. So instead of me telling you what to do, or me traveling out to travel the world and do conference talks, let's actually have a community where people talk to each other, people hire each other, people build libraries that help and open source it for each other, and they realize that a more vibrant community actually is a more sustainable moat than churning out content day after day after day, right? So there's the content piece, there's the community piece, and then the last piece, which in my mind is that forms up external facing developer experience, is the product piece. What I mean by products is that no amount of advocacy you can do in the content, no amount of community user-generated content or forum support or conferences or what have you, no amount of that can fix a broken product. And if you could just give really good feedback to your engineers and PMs about, hey, I talk to a lot of users as part of my job. Here's the pain points, and here's what they struggle with when they go through our product right now. And if you build that into the product, that people don't have to read docs, they don't have to read blog posts, they don't have to talk to any other humans. They just use your thing, and it just works.
Awesome. I hear you speak about just with the descriptions that you gave, and thank you so much for that. Was very helpful for me, was the delineation between developer experience and developer relations, which is another term that I'm hearing more and more. Can you speak to how you manage the flow of information as head of developer experience? Because from what I hear you describe, there's like a lot of feedback loops happening, either between the DX people and the developers, whether internal, external. How do you handle all that flow of information, and even from the applications and the technology itself? And how do you handle that and almost like manage that information in a way that it becomes usable and actionable for others?
We don't handle it very well.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just be honest, right? Like we're still figuring this out. Like I don't want to say, I don't want to sit here in front of you and say like I have this all on, I figured it out. What we do is we hire really capable people, and then we talk a lot. And we talk about the things that we come across, and we have what we call a CRM, a customer relationship management tool. That's Notion, essentially. Like we take notes. when we interact with customers and potential customers. But also when you run an open source tool, because temporal.io is open source, there's just sometimes there are too many anonymous customers who you never really talk to again. So it's hard to take notes on everyone, and it's unrealistic. So we don't do that. We do that for, large names and prospective customers that we expect to have a long dealing with. And then I think surfacing issues in a holistic manner. So we love the word holistic internally within Temporal. To me, what that means is like, okay, where does this slot within a developer's journey through Temporal, right? Like from the landing page onto the first page of the docs to the hello world. Do we throw the book at them, or do we? I realize throw the book is an idiom. Throw a book at them. Like, how much information do we overload you with, and how much is above the fold? Because that's quite realistically all you're going to read on your first encounter. And so what can we squeeze in there that will get you interested and get you to come back? And then maybe the next level is, after your interest, like how do you get you to a hello world that is not only productive, but also like it sincerely is something that you cannot do on your own, or something that you would take a lot longer to do with other tools. And then once you've decided to use the tool, how do we get you to production with all the best practices that we found so far, deploying on your own cloud or on ours? And then once you've deployed it, like what are the practices for optimization and scaling? So there's a whole journey that we're mapping out, and I'm using that essentially to coordinate how we structure the docs, how we do developer relations, like our workshops and our content and all that. And then community-wise, I think it's really helpful when people give you feedback. Where does it slot in that in that journey? So and then hopefully you build it out. But I don't mean to say it's by any means scientific. We're a small team that is serving a fairly large user base, and it's a very complex product. So a lot of things get dropped. Maybe we could do a better job of it, but also I would just need someone full-time taking notes.
Thank you so much. And just rounding up, I guess, this section, it sounds like interesting work, very involved work. But as a developer, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of coding involved in developer experience work. And so how do you handle that as a developer individually? And how do you keep your coding skills sharp if your day job is wrapped up in that kind of work?
Yeah. To some extent, I've already given up on being like a full-time developer. So you just have to make your peace with that. But we do code. So I'll give you examples. At Netlify, where I used to work, our developer relations program formerly had a rotation onto an Eng team for 1/4 of the year. So 3 months out of the 12 months of a year, you are on the Eng team. You do not have any DevRel responsibilities.
Awesome.
And you take tickets, you execute on them, you understand architecture, you document, you write tests, all that engineering stuff. So you keep sharp, you work on the product, and then you go evangelize the product. I think that's a really nice thing to do. Unfortunately, 3 months is actually quite a short time to onboard and to offboard. So people can give you long-running tasks and stuff like that. So on some level, you're still not a real engineer, right? You're not maintaining something day in and day out. You're not on call for the thing that you wrote 9 months ago. Like there are a lot of nuances that you just don't get if you're a tourist. And let's face it, we're kind of tourists. We do write a lot of example code, so demos, workshops, stuff like that. And for me, so for example, we're building out a TypeScript SDK. I'm engaged in API design, and that's some of the most heavy technical challenges I've ever faced. Even though I'm not writing production code, I am determining the design of production code for years to come, which is a fairly high stress job. So I mean, it's not high stress. I mean, I'm enjoying it. I'm just saying, like, to say that is not technical is a joke. Like we're discussing API design and like implementation details and stuff like that. There's 1,000 more ways to be technical than like hands on keyboard committing code. So I don't know. I think I'm enjoying it, and I'm not scared if I ever have to go full-time coding again that I've lost my touch.
Awesome.
Well, speaking of coding, I would love to talk about our next subject, which is the coding career handbook. So first off, when did you write this? This was like a few years ago?
No, this is April to June 2020. That was last year.
Yeah. Sorry, that's what I meant by a few years. Time is going by quick. So what was the catalyst? What made you write this book?
I had 2 months off between Netlify and Amazon, so I I decided that I wanted to do an indie hack. Everyone was like launching their own books and like writing their own courses. I was like, okay, I'll get into this. And I looked around for which of my blog posts have had the most readers. And my blog post on learning in public has had over 1 million readers, and constantly get shout outs. There are bots that like are written because of it. There's translations. I think there's like 10 different translations now of that essay, and so it
Wow,
really resonated, and I was like, okay, probably people want this as a book. So
I
so I
love that.
expanded upon it. I was like, okay, I'll try to make this like a 2-week project, because Daniel Vassallo on Twitter like encouraged me, like, just to get started, get it out there. I ended up planning out 50 chapters, and and having to cut it down because there's no way I was going to ship 50 chapters, and then just wrote and wrote and wrote for 2 months, and
Mm.
I wrote everything that I thought was true. And there's a little bit of imposter syndrome giving out career advice, because like everyone's journey is different. Everyone starts from a different place, depending on your privilege and your just your circumstances, right? So how do you get around that is you collect advice from other people. So this is not just advice from me. There's advice
Mm.
from 1,500 other resources that I collected and put in the bibliography of the book.
Mm.
So it's very much a starting point for like, okay, you just graduated from your boot camp or your free code camp. Let's say you just got your first job as a junior. I try not to address the like first job hunt thing, because a lot of other resources do that. So
Sure.
I think that's overcrowded. But it's very important, by the way. You don't have a job, you're not starting on the rest of your journey. But once you get in the job, people stop learning, and they're not resources to get you from junior to senior. And guess what? Like, most people want to hire senior engineers, not juniors. So my focus was to level you up from junior to senior, and that was the entire messaging, entire focus of like, okay, here's everything that they don't tell you when you start the job. So I think it's the equivalent of having a good mentor at work. And sometimes you don't get to choose your mentor; you just show up, and they assign you someone, and they may or may not be that great. And I'm finding that so many people are mistreated by their employer, or just like under resourced by their employer, so they come to me, and I try to help them as best as I can.
Yeah, I love too that you have like a full on like it's very interactive too. Like you could
Mhm.
obviously buy the book, but you also have all this other material. Do you mind kind of touching on like the advanced options of the purchase?
Yeah, I've actually simplified. I used to have 3 tiers, and that was just like, okay, let's like try to make the most money out of this thing. And I realized like,
Yeah.
I have a good job. I don't need to maximize the money. I just need to charge for my time.
Yeah.
And also, I don't want to like add on another monthly charge to people's bills and stuff like that. That's just super stressful. I'm sick of all the subscriptions I'm paying. So I made it a one-time fee. If you want the book, get the book, but it's already like pirated to oblivion. Um, what really matters is the community. Like,
Mm.
read the book together with other people reading the book and me, and ask me questions as you go along. It's a one-time fee of like, I don't know, like 40-50 bucks,
Mhm.
$40. And yeah, and I have a Discord, and I have a Circle forum, and we chat about the book. We meet up. I show you how I wrote the book, because I have recorded live streams and stuff like that, and I give you extra commentary. So it's everything. I think it's just a steal of my time. But
Yeah.
I love running the community, and like I love the chats that we have. I have people showing up and asking me questions, and then they go away and come back 7 months later, and they go like, hey, by the way, I've been pretty quiet, but like, this is what I've done in my job. And I had a couple people already go from junior to senior. One of them doubled their pay,
Awesome.
going from
Wow.
junior to senior. And I was just, I can't take credit for all of it, but I can at least say I helped them with a lot of their questions and their interviewing and stuff like that. And it's just really cool to run a community on the side where people have a trusted place they can talk about career stuff, apart from their friend network who may not be developers, apart from the people at work who may, you can't be 100% honest with them. But here you can, because we're all interested in growing ourselves and our careers.
Speaking of trusting people, I wanted to talk a little bit about the whole learn in public thing, if you don't mind. Like, I'm going to read a little bit from one of the PDFs that you had for free on here, one of the chapters, which you communicate that you've been trained your entire life to learn in private and keep what you learn to yourself. Success is doing things better than everyone else around you. And of course, I'm gonna just with brevity, just kind of just reading some things here, and of course, you don't share your secrets with competitors, which I found super interesting. And then you have here a point about egoless programming, where you could learn so much on the internet for the low price of your ego. Do you mind just kind of speaking about this whole learn in public and why it's important to let go of that feeling of, I don't want to put my ideas out there because I might get shamed for it or something such as this. And one of the things that I did see, you talked a little bit about you don't want to build a brand of somebody not knowing things, but it's also really important to put yourself out there and get some eyeballs and kind of share your learning experience with everybody, right?
Yeah, that's true. I think it basically takes advantage of the fact that tech is a fundamentally open and positive sum industry. We are encouraged to go on stage and share our lessons and our failures, and that gets upvoted on Hacker News. We open source our code that we wrote in an attempt mostly to hire more engineers, but also to spread good ideas. And partially the company I work at is a benefactor of that. Uber had no reason to allow open sourcing temporal, but it got a lot of traction externally, got a lot of contributions, and then eventually the whole community benefited as a result of that. And so I think if you do that for your own learning, you actually learn much faster than you would by yourself. And there's a few reasons why. So first reason that I think I list like 9 reasons, so I'm not going to go through all of them. It's way too long. But the most important reason to me is the feedback loop. Because when you start off learning, it's always a burst of inspiration and motivation. Like, okay, today is going to be the day I change my life. I will get good at whatever it is I'm trying to get good at. And then you get into it, and then you're like, oh, okay, this is actually hard, and then you give up. So what the learning public does is actually it gives you a feedback loop of like, okay, when you share what you learn and people respond to you, you have some impetus and external expectations to go like, actually, other people are in the same boat with me, or they're mentoring me, or they're looking up to me. I got to keep going. And that feedback loop actually turns it into a positive cycle of like, okay, I'll share what I learned, get feedback on what I learned, and then go fill in the gaps on what I didn't know that I thought I knew. And that's just a fundamental thing. Like, I've done it for maybe 4 to 5 years now, and I've already had amazing success. And I just can't imagine it. What happens when I do it for 40 years or 50 years? And I think a life lived where you learn together with others, that you're learning in public, is just such a more fulfilling one than something where you keep everything to yourself. And people have no. It's just inherently better. I even have the math to prove it. So I call this the big L notation. So it's comparable to the big O notation. The algorithm for big L notation is log of n, which n being the number of years. And it's always a question of like, how do you grow better than the average by number of years? We all know that years of experience is like not a very good metric, but we still do it, right? My company does it, and we don't have any other better objective number to gauge the amount of experience or knowledge or skills that a person has just off of a one-line judgment. But as an engineer, or as a person with a knowledge, who's a knowledge worker, how do you grow your skills disproportionately to your career, to your years of experience? Like, you need a different algorithm. It's the same as big O, right? Like, if you're on that algorithm, no matter how hard you try, you're just going to grow by the big O of your algorithm that you picked. So the different algorithm is, instead of learning private, learning public. And when you learn in public, you add another factor, which is P. So the number of people that you learn with. And so L N times P, that's kind of like the the mathematical improvement on that, because you grow by essentially the number of important questions that you answer. And sometimes you answer, when people ask questions of you, they're asking something that you never thought that you didn't know, and so you tend to uncover things a lot faster, and also whenever you get anything wrong, you will just remember a lot faster. So, and people will crawl over broken glass to remind you of something that you got wrong. So it's just a funny way that the internet works, but I just really like it because the only thing that you lose is some sense of ego that you got everything right on the first try, and if you can let go of that, you can learn so much.
Do you feel like, what would you say to someone who maybe says, what if I put, I'm learning in public and I put my mistakes, quote unquote, out on the internet? What if they come back to bite me? Or what if they come back to, like how, if I put my mistakes out, how do I then convince people that these mistakes that I made, or it may not even be a mistake, it might just be like substandard code, for example, or substandard convention, it doesn't have to be like a wrong thing, but it might just be maybe not as optimized, for example. How do I then convince people that I've grown past that level? Because I get that sometimes.
Just a track record of putting out increasingly better stuff. I don't think there's any shortcut to it. So by the way, there are definitely repercussions for this, and you do have to be careful. I have lost friends over it. I have put out some stuff I should not have put out because it was in private conversation or not public yet, or some stuff like that. And you have to recognize that there's a certain journalistic responsibility that you have when it comes to affecting other people. Like if it's yourself, you can be as public as you want and nobody cares. But if it involves other people may have a different preference level of sharing that they do online, and you need to take care not to hurt them, right? And that's on you, that's on me, and all that. But specifically, people judging you because of bad stuff that you put out, I don't mind. Again, that's part of the ego, right? Like it's part of the journey of like you had to put out the bad thing in order to get good. And guess what? Like a year from now, 2 years from now, you should look back on what you put out, and you should think that it's terrible because that way you know that you've grown. So if you try to only put out the best perfect quality every time, you might find yourself less productive than you would if you just put out the incremental steps along the way. And I think people there's a certain amount of like you can't please everybody, and so the people who get it and will support you along the way, and the people who judge you based on first impression of you don't need them in your life.
And it's also, you're going to be, people are going to more appreciate that kind of level of granularity. If you're putting out those details, right? It provides an opportunity for others to learn. Like if you're a designer and you go to Dribble and you see all these like, beautiful designs, but you don't see like the actual like pen and paper sketches of how somebody got to that idea. Like that's the good meaty stuff that really helps people learn, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Okay, I'll say this. Some people want different levels of signals versus noise, right? Like some people, they have more time to follow your journey, so they don't mind putting up with more noise, more work in progress, more drafts. But some people just want the quick hits of like, give me your top 3 accomplishments, and just give me the best image of you. And that's quite honestly all you evaluate on when people look at your resume or look at your portfolio or your site to see if they want to work with you. So I do think that different mediums should have different levels of effort. And so if you set the expectations clearly, like this is my work in progress channel where I share everything I go in progress, and here's my finished product channel where if you only want my finished product, go here, right? And have a very clear channel, and that's consistent communication across all your social media and your personal channels. I think that works really well. So I do like having a space to experiment and to fail and to just complain. And that's essentially Twitter. But then I do have more sort of professional channels, which is my blog, where I put in a lot more hours. It's kind of like the hours is the ratio of hours spent in creation to the hours spent consuming. So you want higher ratios on the media that you own versus lower ratios in borrowed media, borrowed platforms. And borrowed platforms is literally like like anything that can be taken away from you eventually, like Twitter or YouTube or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I think about it. Like there's I spent 600 hours writing my book. You probably will not get better writing out of me than in that book, because that's the one I wrote for under my own name for money. But everything else, like my tweets, like you get it for free. I don't put a lot of thought into them. It's fine. But also it's weird because like it's also a semi-professional channel. But I do think that people sign up for the work in progress on Twitter in a way that's kind of different than on YouTube or on a blog post. So I like that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We're getting short on time, and I do want to just quickly touch a little bit on your podcast, which I find just super fascinating. I'm hooked now, which is the Swyx Mixtape. And it really is a mixtape. I mean, you talk about things like from the 6 principles of influence to Pokemon jazz. Like it's anything and everything. And the mixtape part is you bring in a lot of these pieces of media into the podcast. And first, I just want to ask you, how did you come up with the idea, and what are people's responses to the show?
How did I come up with the ideas? I had a dabble in professionally or more highly produced podcasts, and I love podcasts. I subscribe to over 250 podcasts, and I listen to podcasts maybe like 3 to 4 hours a day. Thunder Nerds is on there, by the way. Love the show.
Thank you.
So it's an honor to be on. But also, I think that podcast is a very lonely experience. And I'm doing all this listening, and I wish I had a way to take notes on the stuff that I listen to, and also I wish I had a way to share it, share the joy and with others. So when I decided to start my own podcast, I thought that something that was kind of missing in the world was audio notes, just to friends, of like, hey, there's nothing in common with all these topics except that I'm interested in them. And if you're along for the ride, if you like what I like, here's a way to subscribe to it. I will never make any money on this. It's actually mostly for me. But I'm kind of working with the garage door open is the Andy Matushak phrase of this. But like, if you like the stuff I like, and if you like my recommendations, then here's a daily feed of them.
I love that.
And people really, I mean, the audience is pretty small. It's in the hundreds. But people still give me good shout outs every week or so, I'd say. And I don't really know how to grow a podcast. I don't think it's like the most productive hour of my day, but also it makes me, I think, get much more out of my own listening. And honestly, like that's a win in itself. Like, and I love these basically what I call single player games, where that have the option to turn multiplayer, right? Like, so as much as you learn in public, like you might get discouraged if you never get feedback, right? Like if you're like, okay, I worked like so hard on this blog post and I put it out there and I get one like, which is very demoralizing. If your entire goal is to get likes and views. So if you try not to measure yourself on those things, and you flip the switch and you're going, okay, I'm doing this for me, but I'm leaving open the opportunity for others to get to join along. That's much more authentic because you're not performing anymore. You're literally fulfilling your own needs, and you win no matter how much people respond, whether or not it's a hit. I get hits and I get misses. Even today, I have over 1 million visitors a year to my blog. I get hits, I get misses, and doesn't matter. I still win because I wrote the thing. And it expresses something or it notes down something that I've been researching or studying for a while. So that's kind of how I approach my mixtape as well. Like I still win because I had the chance to go over a passage within a podcast that I really liked. And so yeah, and then the eclectic mix it's inspired by a few things. I think the Tech Meme Ride Home is like a very short daily news podcast. The Breakdown is a crypto podcast that is also daily with extended pieces releases on the weekends. And then so what I do is on Mondays, Thursdays, I do clips of other podcasts. On Fridays, I do music because music is another interest of mine, and I like to share my musical picks with others. And then on weekends, I'll do long form audio, sometimes of others, but mostly of me. So my appearances on other podcasts are re-syndicated onto my own feed. So if people like what I do, they'll find it on my feed eventually. So I like that all those things just so that it makes it easier for people to find me, and also it makes it preserves it in case the other podcast goes away.
Well, I'm looking forward to us being on the mixtape.
Exactly.
No, I know what you mean, because I have the same thing. At least for me, is where I take a lot of notes. Like, or well, contest to this. You saw, like, I take a lot of notes. I do a lot of research on every guest, and for me, like, even if we don't like ask like 10% of the questions, I still feel justified because I got to internally learn from all these things, and I got to learn from you. And it's very fulfilling for me. So everybody else getting a little bit of the podcast out there, like, that's just a bonus. You know, for me, I do it for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people also like commentary on podcasts, like meta commentary. So that's what I try to do on most episodes. Like, why should you listen to this? What did I learn from it? What is my personal connection with this 10 minutes of audio that you're about to hear? And it's basically like you would if you're talking in person to a friend and saying, I heard a really good podcast yesterday. Let me tell you about it. Right. Like, and so I think it's great. So
Me too.
I don't know where to go. I don't know where to go with it, because like I also want to grow on YouTube. And so like there's only so many hours in a day, and I would love
to see it as a YouTube thing. I think you would do great with that.
Video is so hard.
Video
you
is
should totally do it.
hard. I have a YouTube channel, and there's some crickets there now because it's been a minute since I put anything on there. Video is hard. When I started putting things on YouTube, my respect for video content creators just skyrocketed, because it's just I'm just speaking for myself, but it's a different level entirely from writing and audio, which is more my comfort zone. Yeah, but video, it's another level. Yeah.
Agree. Well,
Yeah.
we're
So
getting.
I'm trying to get better. Oh, sorry. So I have launched a YouTube version of my podcast, and that's mostly interviews. So I want to do it native to the format of each medium. So my first like podcast interview that I did went super well. It was with Sunil Pai, who is a former React core team member and just a general thought lord on all things JavaScript. And we just went for 1.5 hours talking about everything. And when you touch on every company's product, they listen, and then they spread it in their newsletter, their followers. And I just got notification that we're on the React newsletter, so that's going out to like 300,000 people.
Awesome.
So
That's
gonna
cool.
be pretty interesting. And I don't think I can keep it up, but at least I think YouTube, the easiest format is the interview format. So I'm probably going to do that.
Yeah. Nice. I'd love to see that. Please do that. Well, we're getting to the end of the show, and I'd like to ask 2 questions here. First way, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you? Obviously, we'll put all this in the show notes, but
Sure. My site is Swyx.io. My Twitter is @Swyx, and then I guess if you want to email me, Swyx@Swyx.io. Everything's available on my website anyway, so just go there. That's it.
Perfect. And the last thing is, if you could provide our audience with some parting words of wisdom.
Learn in public. I think it's changed my life. It's changed the lives of many, 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 many others before me and after me. And you don't need to credit me at all, because you just take it and run with it. And I hope it changes yours too.
Swyx, the last thing I wanted to ask you, I see that guitar in the background, and it's just itching at my brain. Are you going to sing us off?
I know. I'm still learning the guitar.
Go ahead and grab it. You can do it.
I'm still learning the guitar.
Learn in public, Swyx.
Learn in public.
The guitar
Yeah, thank you.
No, but it sounds terrible.
Let's hear it. Come on. We've heard worse. Come on. Let's hear it.
Really?
Just one song. Yeah, absolutely.
Jesus. Okay, if you insist. I
insist.
What am I playing?
Whatever you're comfortable playing.
It's out of tune. It's amazing. Fuck.
No, keep going.
It's amazing how you can speak right to my heart. It's the G is like just way out of tune. Oh my god.
No, stop doing that. You sound great. Your voice is awesome.
But it really bothers me as a musician.
No, keep going.
I can
please.
appreciate that.
Don't let perfection get in the way of progress.
I know, right? There we go.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing how you can speak right to my heart. Without saying a word, you light up the dark. I'm still learning.
Amazing. No, that's
That's
great.
Yeah,
Learning
thanks
in
for being a good
public.
sport.
Look
I
at
know
that.
it's so
Yes.
terrible. So I actually I've been advised that I should not do finger picking because finger picking is harder, and I should do chords.
Yeah.
And so I know it's just that I like the sound of finger picking, and I'm trying to do that. And what I really should do is memorize some chords because I can change chords much quicker. So I used to be an
Awesome.
acapella singer, and I'm much more of a singer than I am a guitarist.
Gotcha. Yeah, you have a great voice.
Thank you.
Is there anywhere people could go to hear some stuff?
I have a
That you want to
SoundCloud
share?
that
Oh, you do?
nobody knows about.
Do you want to share it?
Sure. I'll look up the SoundCloud. Oh God. You see, you made me flustered now because like I am not prepared.
Learning in public.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. Okay, it's in here. So soundcloud.com/Swyx. It's very on brand.
Awesome.
Oh, perfect. Nice.
So yeah, that's my acapella stuff. I would like to do multiple instruments, but that's beyond my reach right now.
Do you mind if we put that in the show notes?
Yeah, go ahead.
Nice.
It's not active, but
Awesome.
Oh man, you flustered me. This is like one of my most insecure things because I don't practice enough, and I really
Oh,
need
but
to.
you're the learning in public evangelist now.
That's
I know,
right. And
I
that
know.
sounded good, man. You have an amazing voice.
Thank you.
Very talented.
Yeah. Well, Swyx, that's it for our show. Art, do you have any more questions?
I have thoroughly enjoyed myself. Thank you so much for coming on, Swyx.
Yeah, I had a good
I
time
learned a
too.
lot and just so encouraging. Thank you.
Yeah, same. And thank you, Art, for co-hosting today.
Absolutely. This was fun.
Yeah. You got some more?
I found my chords. You want me to try it again? Do you have
Go
time?
ahead.
Yes,
Sure.
we do. Please.
Remember those walls I built? Baby, they're tumbling down. Didn't even put up a fight. Didn't even make a sound. I found a way to let you in, but I never really had it out. Standing in the light of your halo, I got my angel now. It's like I've been awakened. Every rule I had you breaking. It's the risk that I'm taking. I ain't never gonna shut you out. Everywhere I'm looking now, I'm surrounded by your embrace. Baby, I can see your halo. You know you're my saving grace. You're everything I need and more. It's written all over your face. Baby, I can feel your halo. Pray it won't fade away. There you go. That's my strong hand.
Wow. That was awesome. Thank you so much for
so
sharing
nervous.
that. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
No,
Thanks for giving me a
you.
second shot. Because like the first one sucked so bad. I was just like, I'm not ready at all. Like I haven't warmed up. I can play it while singing. That was my achievement. But
I put you on a spot. I apologize.
Yes. And no, you handled it excellently, Swyx.
Thank you.
Excellently.
That was awesome. Well, thank you again for being on the show. And thanks everybody for watching. Really appreciate it. And we'll catch you next time. Thanks all.